Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share yet another update on my experience with the Sony A7R Mark IV. So as you can see, I've got my 100 to 400 G Master lens mounted, and this update is all about the experience I had specifically with this pairing. Now, this lens was already a great performer on the A7R Mark III, so I was really curious how things were going to turn out with the newer 61 megapixel sensor. And of course, also the improved autofocus system, real-time tracking for video, all of those things, because if you are a sports or wildlife shooter, this is pretty much a fantastic pairing. Yes, you can go down the road of the new 200 to 600, but I would argue that with the additional megapixel count, as well as the fact that this lens, I think, is optically superior to the 200 to 600 G series lens, which by all means, from what I've seen, is still a great lens, but there's a reason that this is a G Master and the other is not. Now, I may eventually get a copy to review of the 200 to 600, so I'm not here to bash it, but again, my experience using this has been fantastic. My hit rate, the lock-on, keepers, way beyond what I expected. Especially when comparing to the A7R III. Now, is it miles ahead? No. On the video side, yes, that real-time tracking makes a huge difference. When it comes to overall autofocus performance, capturing birds in flight, because that's really what I was focused on, not to be cute. I was not out shooting a sports game or anything like that. And I was shooting a lot in auto because I wanted to see exactly how well this camera performs on its own. User errors aside, user capability aside, and I have to say I was beyond pleasantly surprised. I mean, the pairing just seems to be a winner combination. So that already speaks highly to the 100 to 400 G Master, which I've reviewed, and it's my favorite telephoto lens in the E-mount lineup. But the A7R Mark IV just really gives you that extra boost, because now with the 61 megapixel sensor, you really do have, not infinitely more data to work with, but a lot. And that's critical because, hitting focus, okay, that's number one. But then what's in that frame, the fact that we have so much more information now, you've got more to work with. There's no other way of putting it. And then another thing I loved about this pairing, which I mentioned in my previous update, was going into crop mode. Now, while a lot of people will say crop mode is stupid, why on earth would you want to use a full frame camera, a full frame lens, just to achieve a 26 megapixel shot? The additional reach, which again, in this pairing, the ability for me to go ahead and get that 1.5 times crop with still the ability to retain 26 megapixel images as opposed to, I believe it was around 18 megapixels on the A7R III, which I have right over there. Still love that camera. But to get 26 with the crop factor, and remember, when you drop to the crop factor, when you go into APS-C/Super 35 mode, the autofocus system theoretically improves, because now your phase detection points are covering 99% of the sensor. So not only do you gain that benefit of the extra reach, but you're gaining the autofocus accuracy that is not anywhere near 99% when shooting full frame. Full frame, you're a little over 70% of the sensor is covered. Here, switch over to crop 26 megapixel, and all of a sudden, you've got nearly 100% of your frame covered, which is amazing. So this is kind of making life too easy, I have to say. While the price of the A7R IV has gone up, and quite a bit. I mean, we're up to $3,500. I remember, when the A7R II broke the pricing barrier, and it was a $3,000 camera. And then with the Mark III, we went up to $3,200. It was, or excuse me, the A7R II, yeah, I think it was 2,000, unless my memory's going. I think it was 2,000. I don't know, I might be losing it a little bit. And then the Mark III going up to over 3,000. It was a big jump. really big jump. I might be thinking of the A7R original. It's very possible. Either way, the point is that what I was trying to say specifically is that the price upgrade for the Mark IV versus the 3 going from 3,200 up to 35, I can wholeheartedly say is a legitimate, worthwhile upgrade. Now, do you need it? No, no one needs it. But that's also a matter of whether or not this is how you earn your living. If you earn your living shooting stills and you need that 61 megapixels, then you do need it. If you need the dual UHS 2 slots, then you need it. I mean, these are the type of things you must consider. Now, the A7R III is still a fantastic camera. I'm not sold yet that I'm absolutely going to transition to the A7R IV and essentially relinquish my A7R III. But the experience that I've had so far, especially with this lens, I already knew that the A7R IV would do well with primes and, you know, things of that nature. But I wondered about what that telephoto and, you know, the autofocus system was going to bring to a pairing like this. Something that I do really enjoy using. I'm not doing it for paid gigs. This is purely hobby. So that's why the fact that it is so much better, and again, that crop mode, I love it. I love the crop mode. I had a feeling I might love it, you know, between getting more information and greater reach with this lens. And you don't have to use this. You could break out the 70 to 200. You could break out, even if I use my other monster lens, the power zoom, the 28 to 135 f4, which is really a cinema lens. You know, it's not really designed to be a traditional zoom. And of course, you can get something much smaller, Sony's G series, that matches the same reach but is a fraction of the size, which I've also reviewed. But I like that it has a power zoom, because if you do want to use something like this as a video camera, you have that flexibility with that other lens. The point is, you have that additional reach for stills while maintaining a megapixel count that is beyond respectable. I mean, the fact that at crop mode, this is still a higher megapixel count than Sony's brand new flagship that I'll be reviewing, the a6600, tells you everything you need to know. And I think that was very smart of Sony. Again, the A7R III caps out at 18, I think it's 18 or a little under 19 megapixels. That doesn't hold up to their APS-C offerings. It's close, but no cigar. Here, though, you got it all. And that's why this is the camera at this point right now in the market to really rule every single model on the market. And the EVF, I mean, this new 5.7 million dot EVF is fantastic. I mean, this is as good as it gets without going optical. And then again, I wouldn't want to go optical simply because you would lose all of the information that the EVF is providing. So while I'm not blown away by, you know, the new touchscreen capability, which is little to none as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not incredibly focused on the Wi-Fi transfer, which is nice also, battery life, roughly the same. I do like the battery, the I/O port doors a lot more on this build, and I have not tested its weather resistance still, and I likely am not going to. Again, this pairing is fantastic, and the keeper rate was just much better than what I got out of my A7R III, and of course blows my A7R II out of the water. And the A7R II is still a fantastic camera, and I may compare this to it. So those of you that are wondering whether or not, you know, is the A7R II still relevant? Absolutely. The A7R II is still, in my opinion, a fantastic camera. But if you've got the budget to take it to the next level, then you should be looking at the Mark III or, of course, this Mark IV. And because the Mark III is so heavily discounted, that makes it even more compelling. But again, this video was all about this specific pairing, the 100 to 400 G Master with the 61 megapixel monster, the A7R IV, and that ability to utilize the crop mode. It's great flexibility that did not exist in previous generations. Now, if only Sony will throw in some active steady shot for 4K video, then I might actually be able to handhold some decent 4K video with this combination as well. I'm not expecting perfection, but if I can get decent video, that already, that doesn't require a gimbal, that already would be a step in the right direction in my mind. And hopefully they will update that through firmware. After all, it's something we've got with the RX100 Mark VII. Why not bring it to the best camera that they presently make? That is until, of course, we get the next flavor, which is likely going to be the A9 Mark II and possibly the A7S Mark III, which there are all sorts of rumors swirling around about right now. And if you're wondering about any other lenses that I've used with this, go ahead and post it in the comments. Most of you know I have a ton, not a ton, but a fairly good amount. Not a library, not a catalog, but a solid amount of FE glass. Not a lot of G Master, because that's just, if you're using G Master, you better be getting paid. That's all I have to say. If you're doing it purely for hobby, then more power to you, I guess. This is my only G Master. This is the only one that I said, you know what, I gotta have it. But that's also because nothing was this long at the time. Now you get the 200 to 600, which I did think about abandoning this lens for, but everything I have read as well as seen seems to lean towards the 100 to 400 outperforming that extra reach of the 600 millimeters, simply because of this lens being superior in terms of actual fidelity and overall performance. But that's it. A7R Mark IV hitting home runs, grand slams, touchdowns, slam dunking crap left and right. I mean, I cannot remember. I mean, I know I was positive just about on every A7R that I've covered, which is every single one since the line's inception. But boy, has Sony come a long way. When I did the preview of this, I thought it was just going to be, oh, it's more megapixels. It's great. It's a shot at medium format, but do we need it? And now all of a sudden, I'm seeing flexibility, specifically again with that crop, that you didn't need to have. It wasn't part of the lineup until this generation. And then, of course, having beyond that extra information when you are shooting shots that traditionally would have only been over 40 megapixels, it really adds up to quite a bit. Now, in regard to low light performance, that's part of the rub. 61 megapixels, even though they kept the range the same, you definitely take a little bit of a hit. In low light, this is not outperforming my A7R Mark III. So, but I'll get more into that in my final full review, but this is just another update because I've been shooting the crap out of this thing, and it's fantastic. Kudos to Sony. The A7R Mark IV is the camera to own if you've got the budget, full frame, pro, hobby, consumer. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want the best of the best right now, and you got the cash, the A7R IV is where it's at. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.